Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. And thank you for joining us today. So my name is Laurent Arnon. I am private sector advisor at WaterAid, and with my colleague Swapna from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, we are very excited to welcome you to this session, Will the WASH Response to COVID-19 Strengthen Supply Chain Resilience? Before diving into the heart of the presentations today, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce WaterAid. So WaterAid is the leading water sanitation and hygiene NGO. We work across a range of sectors, including the private sector and with businesses. We are present in 34 countries, including in key supply chain geographies, and we have a multitude of partnerships around supply chains. We work with our corporate partners to improve workers' access to WASH in the workplace, in the supply chains, and in the communities where workers live, strengthening business and supply chain resilience through better health and productivity. To date, we have reached millions with clean water, decent toilets, and good hygiene, with the focus in the last 18 months on water and hygiene more specifically. If you are with us today, I believe you want to hear from our speakers about the connections between WASH, health, and business resilience, and why hygiene for workers must be a boardroom priority. So in today's session, we will start with short presentation from all the panelists who will share their company's perspective on how the COVID-19 has impacted and their own response related to WASH. They will combine the perspective of both managers making decisions in factories and global sustainability leaders driving their business sustainability agenda. We will then open the floor to questions from the audience, so please use the chat box to share your reflections and questions for our experts. Now over to Swapna to present the World Business Council.
Thanks, Varo. So I'm Swapna Patil, Manager Water with World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and I lead the WASH Pledge for WBCSA. Today, we are very glad to host this session and convene this session on WASH with WaterAid about WBCSD. So it's a global organization, CEO-led organization of 200 forward-thinking CEOs working together to accelerate the transition to a sustainable world. Together, we have a vision of creating a world where more than 9 billion people are living well within the planetary boundaries of our planet by 2050. And to know more, please visit the website mentioned on this slide here, which says Time to Transform. We enable business contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals through transformation of 6 economic systems, as you can see in this circle here. Water and WASH officially sits under the Food and Nature program of WBCSD. With this short introduction, I would next like to introduce the esteemed panel for today's discussion. Laura, could you please switch to the next slide? I would request them to switch on their videos as I take their name. The moderator for today's discussion is Mr. V.K. Madhavan, who is Chief Executive of WaterAid in India. In past 3 decades, he has worked on integrated approach to rural development that includes community health and natural resource management that includes drinking water. For speakers today, we have Mahir Abdullah, who is CEO and Head of Business at Fakir Fashion in Bangladesh. He has around 27 years of experience in the textile sector and has worked with global brands like H&M and Young One Corporations. The next panelist we have is Helena Dollimore, who is a Senior Manager in Global Sustainability at Unilever, where she focuses on human health and well-being, including Unilever's efforts to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, we have Donna Laviolette, who is Senior Manager Global Sustainability at Xylem. She's a proficient leader at embedding sustainability into business and demonstrates the link between company strategy and the commitment. With this short introduction, I now hand over to V.K. Madhavan to set the context for the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Swapna. Thanks, Laurent. What a strange year it's been. COVID-19 has taken an unbelievable toll on people's lives. Morbidity, mortality, just the simple well-being of people is not something that you can you can guarantee anymore. It has taken its toll on the mental health and well-being of people. Livelihoods have been impacted. And economies world over have taken a beating amidst this crisis. We are hearing stories of unemployment having increased, and in particular about how informal sector workers have actually borne the worst of the pandemic. We're also hearing about an increase in poverty world over. What the pandemic has done is that it has exposed limitations of our public health system. Economies have taken a beating and supply chains have been disrupted. I think it's important for us to recognize that world over, there are 1.5 billion people who work in supply chains across sectors. Now, as emerging markets in developing economies in Africa, Asia, Latin America are emerging as part of supply chains of businesses, we're also recognizing that access to wash or inadequate access to wash is very, very important for these 1.5 billion people who work in these supply chains. If COVID has taught us one thing, it is about the centrality of wash for our lives and our well-being. Now, we talked about COVID impacting on supply chains, but I think it's time for us, and we hope in this session, to talk a little bit about how we could build resilience against future shocks like COVID and similar pandemics. How can we future-proof businesses and the people engaged in them from infectious diseases and climate change, two of the biggest crises that the world is facing at this point of time? So we're fortunate to have a panel which can bring very diverse perspectives. Perspectives from managers making decisions in factories as part of the apparel supply chain, which is Fakir Fashions. And we have representatives from two global sustainability pioneers, from Unilever and from Xylem. People who design strategies and on how to engage with suppliers. If you have any questions, I would request all the participants to post them in the chat. We will have time after we've heard from our panelists to get them to respond to some of your questions. If we run out of time, we will ensure that there are ways by which you can get a response later as well. So I would now like to hand over to our first panelist, to the CEO of Fakir Fashion, Mr. Maher. Over to you, Maher.
You are on mute, Maher.
Yes, thank you, Swapna. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Madhavan. And good evening, good afternoon, good day to everyone. And thank you, everyone, for connecting. And I'll be very happy to quickly run through our slides. My name is Maher. I'm CEO and head of business of Fakir Fashion. Fakir Fashion is a vertical knit garments industry, from knitting, dyeing, garmenting, printing, washing, finishing, packaging, and export. We are housing in one campus 18,000 people. We produce 250,000 pieces of garments every day, and our turnover is 180 million. Having said so, you might have some idea, this is a very much industry needed water every day for dyeing, for washing, for finishing, and besides everyday use of our 18,000 people in the same campus in a regular day. And what COVID, like Madhavan said, also threatened us with more requirements with hand wash, safety, hygiene system, and massive awareness, and also panic. People went into trauma. They even, also we had great partners like WaterAid, and even we work with Xylem and Liver Brothers here, Unilever, with their soap and hygiene things. But bigger impact was how we manage so many people in one campus while you were talking about social distancing. On the other hand, you were talking about livelihood over lives. And while every company is shutting down here, losing jobs, and we have been extremely fortunate at Fakir Fashion to retain our people and grow the business. How we did, we had divided our company into two shifts. So we tried to bring the 8,000 or 9,000 people in one shift and another 9,000 people in another shift, and also establish massive hand washing stations and pure water supplies and hand washing facilities with soaps and hygiene things, and massive awareness sections, and also flyers, floors leaders been engaged to teach them, while we all also kept learning things. We were talking 1.5 years ago, and Fakir Fashion was very proactive among other industries in Bangladesh. It is also worth to mention here, Fakir Fashion is one of the top knit factories, pioneer in Narayanganj, which is a knit village like Tripura in India, which costs huge water uses every day. For a kg of fabric, you have to use 70, 80 kgs of water. So what we did, we had created massive awareness among our workers, how not to misuse the workers' water while they are hand washing for 20 seconds, how to stop the tape in between while they're soaping their hands, and again, go into the factory after clean wash and spraying their foods and our even cars. If you have a slide, you can see later on. And then before lunch and after lunch, because one caution was to have their safety of their health and hygiene, and another safety was their workplace, not to transmit diseases there. So that has given us huge boost. There was a massive awareness created among workers, floor leaders, and top management. Everybody became equal. We're all in same level field. We are afraid of same virus. We are taking same precautions, and we have followed the rules very diligently. That worked very well because we had also created this awareness among their communities. We have built water sanitation system in their communities, which is neighboring in our factories. 18,000 people, they have 4 people at home. You are dealing another massive 50, 60,000 people's life who are transmitting everything each other, living in a close possible places. And then also came back factory next day. So what we have seen a little bit of confidence build up among them. They have also taken this knowledge to their community. They shared this knowledge to their families and friends, kith and kins, which also helped them to build their mental health. And they came back to the factory well. And at the other hand, while we have also heard cases of absenteeism in other factories, and we had also different results because we could stop contagious diseases and we could also take care of their health. And they also felt good coming back to the factories where they were maintained social distancing. We have established different medical team who check their temperature in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. If somebody else, a lot of people also traumatized, they felt I'm having fever, little coughing and sore throat. So they all went to the doctors, and we also give them whatever medicine we have. We gave them leave with pay, they've stayed home. And this WASH program, which was also running in our factory for some time, really coincided in a time where it has intensified the knowledge and practices, and it brought a massive confidence among factory people, among their communities. And also we had been running our factory uninterruptedly, double shifts, and with all the knowledges. And I'm very happy to be part of it. And you can see some of the slides along the factories, wall to wall, factory to factory, in different stations. We have established this hand washing, water supply, and all these hygienic methods. And same thing we have also established in their community, as we said. So this has gone very well. And then we realized we also need to take care of water. And it was very lucky year while we have also inaugurated our rainwater harvesting system. So we had captured all the rainwater in the monsoon season, which also went directly to the supplies, to the water dyeing and all this kind of thing, which is also very clean water. And the beauty of this water is that it doesn't have to go through some of chemical projects and chemical management system. It is pure. We just filtered it to the nets and it was regularly supplied. So in this COVID situation, while we have also learned so much things, we had also learned water management internally and also in their family use, because this knowledge is with them. They came all the time and they had benefited. We also asked them questions. Did you also share with your families and neighbors? Because it was also important to see that they're also keeping themselves safe from their community while people are washing hands, they're using toilets, they're having safe hygiene system, which we had established in their community as well as factory. So it was a big threat because our buyers has been really panicked. They've been asking about the safety of their products, whether this product is carrying any contagious diseases. And there were $1 billion question whether COVID is transferring through the garments. So we had also shared all these slides, videos, and educations. And we have created line gap because we divided our company into two, so we could create some kind of social distancing among 18,000 people. So we set up one line and we put gap to another line and then another line. So this has gone through a lot of videos, audio presentation like this every day. And we are also happy and proud to share that brands like H&M, C&A, Inditex Group, and Gina Tricot in their corporate company has really demonstrated these presentations, videos, and practices. And they also got courage. If Fakir Fashion could manage 18,000 people in a campus, not much educated workers, but they really, really believed in us and all these projects and all this education that we have taken, so they could inspire their office. And we received enormous appreciations from the brands. And also we had received award from Bangladesh government and our health and hygiene department for maintaining in a quick time. And I would spread this message to other factories in BGMEA, BKMEA, and many factories came to visit us and see how we practices. We proudly shared that, collaborated with them, sent our auditors and volunteers to their factories to set up such things, and very happy to share these good stories with everyone. And we had done a lot of road shows, TV shows, and WaterAid and BKMEA, BGMEA, they had also partnered with us in the media, different media coverage, and we could really, really inspire how we handled this COVID situation and how WASH has really, really benefited the previous practices and extended practices and behavior patterns of change in the people, which is still we are maintaining. Actually, we have not stopped. So this became kind of habit. And at the end of the day, with this little knowledge, with every single water tape and drop, we could actually save more water because they're more cautious to save water. They manage their tap well. They knew 20 seconds, after 20 seconds, they can close it and they save water. They also learn the value of water. Thank you.
Thanks, Mahir. So I think if you could turn to Helena, and if Helena, you could answer the same question that Mahir also shared, which is, will the WASH response to COVID-19 strengthen supply chain resilience? And what are the lessons learned and what this means for the future of sustainability strategies? Over to you, Helena.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Madhavan. And just firstly want to say a big thank you to yourself, to WaterAid, and to Laurent as well for convening us on such an important issue. We were just, reflecting before the panel on when some of us were all at World Water Week, when it last ran in a physical presence, and what a time it's been since then, and how many of us have been, engaged in different responses since then. WaterAid, of course, like many NGOs, has worked tirelessly since then to support communities on the ground throughout the pandemic. And of course, assist companies like ours, and as we've just heard as well, in our response to COVID-19. And I think we're incredibly grateful for all of that support. So just to touch on our response to COVID and how we responded within Unilever, and as well in the communities where we are present. Hygiene, as many of you will know, has been a central part of Unilever since our founding, really, in the 19th century. And our founder, William Lever, he founded the company with a vision to make cleanliness commonplace, and our commitment to WASH and to access to water, sanitation and hygiene has been at the heart of our company ever since. As a purpose-led business, we believe in doing the right thing, not just in our own internal operations, but also in our wider sphere of influence. So that covers, of course, our supply chain, our value chain, and our brands and the wider society that they play a role in too. We do that by running programs and initiatives in both our own operations and the communities where we work to advance a range of different areas, particularly around water conservation, access to water, sanitation and hygiene. And many of you will be familiar with the brands that Unilever own, from Domestos to Dove to Persil, and many of those also play a role in communities with purpose programs, encouraging changes in attitudes and improvements in different areas across a range of different areas, not just WASH. And that really covers our approach to purpose-led business. WASH is something we've been working on with NGOs like WaterAid for a long time, and also working together with civil society and governments to effect the change that we know we need. So really, when COVID-19 struck, we already had WASH embedded in our business, and we had a strong foundation upon which to build on within our own operations and our supply chains. So we were able to move very quickly to ensure the safety of our staff. Immediately in March 2020, we announced global measures for all of our employees, covering, of course, office-based workers working from home, But, you know, the majority of our workers who work in laboratories, factories and distribution centres, we introduced very strict protocols that were put in place in those centres, and we created a central resource of guidance and policies, which was quickly and centrally managed, but with adaptations depending on the local context and of course being informed by the local pandemic situation. We also thought it was important to really support the small and medium-sized enterprises in our value chain. And so for that reason, we offered 500 million euros of cash flow relief at the beginning of the pandemic and early payment for those vulnerable suppliers to help them with their financial liquidity. We also extended credit to small retail customers whose business relies on Unilever to help them manage and protect jobs and of course keep their staff safe, because our wider value chain, you know, encompasses many small and medium-sized enterprises who also need to play a role in keeping their staff and their communities safe. And then, as you can imagine, as the world's biggest manufacturer of soap, we saw a huge demand for hygiene products, massively outstripping the supply that was the current supply at that time. So our production teams moved incredibly fast to ramp up production, to ramp up the supply and help communities have enough access to products that they needed to fight the infection of the virus. Just to give you a few examples, we ramped up the supplies partly by switching over production lines. So in one factory in Vietnam, we actually switched production to hand sanitizer in just 25 days. And all of this, of course, while ensuring that we were keeping our factories safe for employees. But really, you know, that is what we did in our value chain. I think we also recognize that as the world's biggest soap company, who's been, as I mentioned, working in hygiene behavior change for many decades, we were also well placed to respond to the impact of the pandemic across the communities where we work. And it's not just enough to look at our direct value chain. We've also got to support the communities that they go home to and they live in. And we know that no one is safe from the pandemic until we are all safe. So we really wanted to ensure that the communities most at risk had knowledge of and had access to what they needed to keep themselves safe and prevent COVID-19 infection. We know the importance of hand washing with soap, and the WHO is still clear on that importance today. But we also knew back in March 2020 that there were so many places in the world where access to clean water, hygiene, and the infrastructure just simply doesn't exist, particularly for those most at risk. If we think about displaced populations, those with disabilities particularly. And that's really why we founded the Hygiene and Behaviour Change Coalition at the start of the pandemic. Lauren, perhaps if you could put the slide up and I can just explain to everyone what the Hygiene and Behaviour Change Coalition is. We partnered with the UK government. At the time it was DFID, the Department for International Development. It's now known as the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO. And Unilever joined up with the UK government really to reach one of the most vulnerable populations in low and middle income countries. And we had three goals. One, to help them with infrastructure, providing hand washing facilities, safe water access, and high access to hygiene products that they might not have. Two, to increase awareness of COVID-19, hygiene behaviour change, and of course, education about what you need to do to keep yourself and your family safe. And a particular focus on the groups we knew who were vulnerable: health workers, refugees, people with disabilities, and at that time, a big focus on migrant workers who we worried would take the virus from urban to rural areas. We set out to reach 1 billion people, and I'm pleased to say we've already surpassed that target, and we've reached 1.4 billion people to date, as you can see, with 78 projects in 37 countries. And I think, you know, this is important to us, as I said, because we believe as a business, we need to have an impact beyond just our value chain, but also the communities that our employees go home to work in at the end of the day, go home to at the end of work. But also there's a massive, you know, business imperative for us to help tackle COVID-19. And this is something that we've been saying to the rest of the private sector throughout the pandemic. There is a moral imperative, but it's also very bad for global economies and for businesses to have pockets of infection around the world continuing, to have the emergence potentially of new COVID variants in those places, and to have economies continuously on lockdown. So we believe that truly this is, as a purpose-led business, this is very much something that we need to be focusing on. And that's why we set out with such an ambitious target. We bring together the Unilever and FCDO, but essential to helping us deliver on the ground are the 21 NGO and UN partners that you see on the screen there, and also the London School for Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who help ensure the response has been driven by evidence as the pandemic and certainly the science around it has evolved. Of course, WaterAid has been a key partner throughout this pandemic, and they worked in 6 countries as part of the HBCC: Ethiopia, Ghana, Nepal, Pakistan, Tanzania, and Zambia. And just to give a few examples of some of the work that WaterAid did, we worked with experts to design and install inclusive hand washing facilities so that people with disabilities could operate hand washing facilities and access what they needed to do to keep themselves safe from COVID-19. We also know that people with disabilities can be more vulnerable to surface transmission of the virus. So that was something we focused on as well in at-risk communities. They also received a large donation of Unilever products as part of their response, and they distributed soap, sanitizer at these hand washing stations and as well in the communities. And in Zambia, they supported the Ministry of Health's hygiene campaign by distributing products and working alongside the government to do that. We've also worked with a huge range of other partners. So ActionAid, just to talk about their gendered approach a little bit, they worked with women and girls and empowered them to be the agents of COVID-19 behaviour change in the communities where they work, which was very innovative. BRAC also working in Bangladesh to make sure that schools had access to necessary hand washing facilities. And the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, they trained refugees in the refugee camps as the community healthcare workers to deliver that hygiene awareness messaging in the camps. And I think if we think about, what are the lessons, as Madhavan said, coming out of this, and how do we take this forward and for resilience in the future? I think we've learned a huge amount through the HBCC, which we are working to capture with the London School for Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the event of, touch wood, not for a long time, another pandemic, but also to embed those messages into those learnings into the challenges we all know we still face around WASH and around reaching SDG 6 and tackling the infectious diseases we know many people still die from through poor access to WASH. But really, I think I would urge all businesses to make WASH a core part of your sustainability strategy, and all businesses to make sure that you have resilience in your supply chain to future shocks. As I've said, tackling COVID-19 is not just a moral imperative, but it's also a pandemic is very bad for business. And that's why we've been working very hard to tackle it with FCDO.
Thanks, Helena. And I will request Donna to share. And while Donna commences, if you all have any questions, please post them in the chat box. We'll turn to them a little later. Over to you, Donna.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I was asked to speak on the way Xylem engages with suppliers on WASH. So we'll talk about the WASH pledge and Xylem supply chain. So next slide, please. Back in 2018, we actually did sign the WASH pledge with the WBCSD. But in 2019, we actually looked at our sustainability strategy and our future goals, and came to realize that our handprint, our footprint was much smaller than the handprint we could have. So we were at the point, I think, in our sustainability journey where we had a good handle on what we were doing internally in our operations and also working with our customers and suppliers, but realized that in the future, turning or pivoting to our footprint was a good thing to do. So again, in 2019, we also included the WASH pledge in our 2025 sustainability framework. So in our framework, which we commit to, is 3 initiatives within WASH. The first one is WASH for our employees. So we ensure that 100% of our employees have access to WASH at the workplace, but we also extended that to include WASH at employees' homes and also WASH during disasters. So that kicked off a great program for us. We also included WASH across the supply chain. So in order for suppliers to be included in our preferred suppliers in 2025, they would need to sign the WASH pledge. And then also WASH in our communities. We have partnered with several NGOs getting water out there. We build water towers. Again, we're a water technology company. So water is near and dear to our hearts. We have a lot of WASH initiatives, WASH programs, WASH trainings in communities across the globe. We also, near and dear to our heart, of course, is SDG 6. We report out on our progress to SDG 6 on an annual basis through our sustainability reports, our communication on progress with the UN Global Compact, a whole host of different ways. And so based on our company estimates, approximately 90% of Xylem's revenues addresses SDG 6. So again, water is near and dear to our heart. Our tagline is "Let's solve water," and that's what we're hoping to do with our customers and our suppliers and all of our stakeholders. Next slide. We're missing a bit of a portion on the slide, but I can talk to it's coming in now. Actually, since we initiated this with our in 2019, having our suppliers engage with the WASH program, WBCSD WASH program, over 300 Xylem suppliers have joined the cause since January of 2020. We're really excited about those numbers. We have a lot of suppliers coming in, and we look at our key success factors for that. A lot of it is educational opportunities. A lot of our suppliers did not even know about the WBCSD WASH pledge. So we had webinars, speaking engagements, one-on-one conversations to actually bring awareness to the WASH program and what it was. We also have targets and KPIs that we report out to on a quarterly basis on what we're doing with our suppliers to push WASH into the workplace. And again, this is a great opportunity, even the webinar we're having today, having these engagement opportunities with WBCSD, WASH for Work, WaterAid, and all our NGOs that we work with, pushing this out into the communities. And we also do a lot of one-on-one support. What I'm really excited about this presentation today is, learning all the engagement opportunities other folks are doing or suppliers are doing, and bringing that training and education to our suppliers, saying you're not in this alone. There's a whole host of folks pushing WASH in the workplace, and then also extending that out to communities. Again, several folks, Mahir and Helena brought up the fact that you can have WASH in your workplace, but employees go home at the end of the day, and you want to ensure that their homes and also their communities have access to WASH. The key learnings we had, rolling this out to our supplier base, is that the WASH pledge is relevant to all industries. So whether you're a factory, whether you're a service provider, whether you're a mom and pop organization, a large factory, and even with all different commodities, WASH is key and essential to the workplace. When the pandemic hit last year, Xylem actually went to our suppliers and actually looked at their, worked with them on their business continuity plans. We knew that WASH was an important part of that. And we talked to them about the WASH pledge and what we could do to help them. Again, we have training materials. We work with Planet Water. We have trainings that we provide. We're also doing it, like I said, in our own workplace, where we're running pilot programs in India, in South Africa, on getting WASH out to employees' homes and into the communities there. I think another key learnings that we had is that the implementation of WASH is different with each supplier. And so again, we do a lot of one-on-one work with our suppliers, different ways that they can roll it out, helping them with translation issues if that's the problem, and also providing those learning materials. We think, governance and communications. So we have processes where we actually share with our suppliers how we implemented it into our workplace, or what we're doing with our employees and our communities. And then also, I think the feeling of joy we get is our best partners take pride in joining the initiative. Really can't read it here, but we actually partnered on Global World Hand Washing Day with one of our suppliers. We did a blog with them, and also the WBCSD on the benefits of having WASH in the workplace, and what has done to the supply chain. Next slide. I think what we also did is with our watermark program, which is our corporate responsibility program, we partnered with the community grants and matching program when the pandemic started. So in 2020, our watermark launched immediate assistance. And so we understood throughout the pandemic, the importance of having access to wash facilities to prevent the spread and disease became increasingly visible, and we understood that. So what we did is we established the Watermark Partner Community Grants and Meeting Program, and that actually was available even to our suppliers. So our suppliers could apply for a community grant to put hand washing stations in communities. So again, we do several partnerships. Again, we work with Planet Water. Here we work with UNICEF and AmeriCares. But we have these programs available for our suppliers, and we'll be rolling them out, continuing to roll them out. Even when the pandemic gets better, we know that there's a chance for another pandemic in the future. So what we can do with our suppliers, getting that out into their facilities and also into the community has a large effect on the world. And so we're here to help, and really looking forward to continuing the WASH program with our suppliers and customers and our stakeholders in general. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Helena, and thanks, Maher. I'd like to now to just kickstart this discussion. Would like to pose a question to each one of you. I'd like to start with Maher. So Maher, have brands, buyers, other stakeholders changed their requirements with regard to hygiene and wash? For example, audits, and how are you adapting?
Well, there are some partners who had also been partnering the WASH programs where WaterAid, HSBC, IFC have started partnering. But those were like the sustainability calls, water management. But during pandemic, that was a very emergency call. And everybody was learning, going through the learning sessions, and brands were nervous. Actually, that was other way around, Madhavan. Many brands canceled the orders. They were not sure whether they'll reopen the shops, whether there will be any requirement of supply. We had invested on the inventory. Millions of dollars were in the key in the store, and workers are sitting idle. People like us in this part of the world can pay 1 month or 2 months salary. We didn't know how to continue these, how to plan, and all these things. But what we have taken a very bold step. We had to save in any way our 18,000 workers, their families, and also we have to keep the economy running. So what we did, we quickly shared with our partners. We assured them rather, how we are saving their work environment, business, and very soon they also realized they are not getting the supply. The inventory running short. So they came us for a quick supply, whether we can do a speed reaction in 7 days, 20 days, 30 days, and unconditional demand. And they also did not know what is the projections. So we rather, as a Fakir Fashion, we rather came forward to save our business and to assure our partners that we have taken these steps. We shared our videos, our clips, as I said, and also they supported with these clips and documentaries to other suppliers how to do that. We collaborated together and we shared knowledges from one brand to another. There was no competition. That's a different reality, and we have seen very good results. And you'll be surprised, we had hired 6,000 more workers to supply goods in different shifts, because we tried to split the workers and successfully followed all these hand wash situations and water supply management, people management, all the safety protocols. And then we could keep our business and shop operating. And all the brands also questions about the feasibility, whether we could do it all the time, because there are also, you can imagine, there are extra resources required, people, money. Like you heard, there's not enough soap supply in the beginning. There is not enough sanitizer supply in the beginning. There is scarcity, there are artificial scarcity. So we have to collect all these things, and the buyers are not ready to pay extra. Many buyers are also cutting corners. The business is bad, I cannot pay so and so, which is also reality, because they've also gone through a trauma and they understand slowly. And after 1 year, at least the partners from us, the name I said in the beginning, they all released the payments, they all partners. And we did a speed reactions because many of our competitors and peers could not supply actually. I would thank our great team who were trained by the WASH. Before than that, we have been practicing as a compliant factory, and our finance also helped us. Our management actually take a bold step because they are a very solvent company, and we said this is our time to show to the world what we're doing to our people. So it is not in the factory that we did these things. We went back to their community because our whole factory is built on our villages. And you can imagine these 20,000 people with the backup support. They're talking about 80,000 people in the community who are mostly dependent on our factories, their housing, their groceries, their supply, their food, their catering, their transport, and their family working here. So we had improved our facility for the childcare, maternity, lactating, and we have partnered with great NGOs to share the knowledge and also be our spokesman to the brands. So brands that supported us morally very much. Oh yes, they might not pay extra 2 cents for that, which we'll talk in a different session, which is also needed, you know. And because in Bangladesh, we are one of the cheapest factories in the world, so-called. We make blah blah, and we are responsible for everything. But we also need to have bigger partners who are responsible for all these sustainability things, big investment, capital investment, which Fakir Fashion has secured with a noble effort. But in this COVID situation and this crisis time, that really paid very well. So we have great recognition brand partners. They are inspired, and we are happy to share. And I believe we'll have a bigger platform to discuss about this, and also release budgets for all this safety, you know. And the $1 billion question was that time life over livelihoods. So we took burning steps because, you know, it's a big populations here, a lot of unemployment people. So people will die out of hunger if not COVID. So we had to be really take risks, and we could not, like corporate offices, do home office and such things, because we have machines here, we have textiles here, we are dyeing here, we have sewers here, we have to box the goods, we have to transport the goods. So we took risks because we did not know, we were not vaccinated. Vaccine came late, and we only had big moral support from our brand partners, who really appreciated, who sent a lot of appreciations and showed our Fakir Fashion's case. These files and clips were everywhere, and we got a real recognition, and our workers were morally boosted because we also stood besides them. And trust me, Madhavan, that time, the managing director, CEO, worker, everybody is same, because we are in the same level field. And the COVID, you don't know, the rich or poor, you know, who's affected every day. And there was a huge fellowship, actually. I felt good because we felt all equal. It's very democratic, very humane, and very excited. And we felt like a family. We came here, we really took care of everything. And we're still doing that, but now things became a little normalized. People are not much afraid, a lot of vaccinations, and cases are down. And you might also heard that Bangladesh is one of the very lucky country who is having 180 million people in the small land, but the cases were the lowest. I don't know if you have to say immunity or good wash or a lifestyle, I don't know, but it was nature's call, and we have done wonderful. And we had few cases, but we are all good. Thank you.
Thanks, Maya. It's really heartening to hear about how you've taken care of your people, and your response being one which is of your own volition, irrespective of whether your brands actually required it of you. So it'd be great to hear from you. Helena, over to you. So sort of based on your experiences, and the lessons that you've learned over the last 18 months, so what actions do you think, particularly with regard to WASH, do businesses need to prioritize, and now? Not just to strengthen supply chains for long-term resilience, but also more specifically to respond also to the context of climate change.
Thanks, Madhavan. And I think, like Meher, our response to COVID really, I think as a business in Unilever, we were pretty well prepared for COVID-19 and the WASH implications that it brought with us within our own supply chain. But certainly what we've set out to do is to pass on that knowledge to the other smaller businesses that we work with and the wider business community, and encourage them to really take this seriously. I do think, given the 12, 18 months that we've had, there are few businesses that aren't taking wash seriously now, which I think as a wash community who have been kind of banging on people's doors about wash for many decades, we need to recognize progress when it comes. If there are businesses, supply chains out there that are not prioritizing this adequately, then they quickly need to wake up to the realities of the world that we are living in. But I would really urge the private sector not to, you know, as things in some countries start to go back to normal, I'm aware I'm only talking about some pockets of the world where vaccination rates are higher. As some pockets of the world begin to go back to normal, as people begin to return to perhaps using less PPE, loosening some of the protocols that had been in place at the highest peaks of the pandemic, I think there is a danger that we also see a loosening of the hygiene protocols and the importance of wash and the focus on wash. And certainly I would urge everyone to keep the same access to wash in place that they've introduced. And really think about this as well as an investment in the future, an investment in preparedness for future pandemics, but also from the, you know, from the studies that we've been doing for a long time as part of Wash for Work with WaterAid and the wider wash business community. We know that investing in wash in our supply chain reaps business benefits. We know that, you know, if people are taking less time off due to diseases we can prevent, like diarrhea, that's a good thing for everyone, for the employees, but also for the, you know, fact that people are missing less days of work. So that's really what I would urge coming out of the pandemic. And turning to climate change, I mean, of course, I think we recognize that probably the main way that our business will feel the impact of climate change is through water. And the past 18 months have only sought to strengthen that within our business. We've taken several commitments as at Unilever as part of that. We are committed to making all of our product formulations biodegradable. And of course, we have, you know, we believe that we can have an impact both through our direct business, but also through the impact we have with our consumers. So we are making all of our product formulations biodegradable, and we're also increasingly talking to consumers about how they can use our products in a way that uses less water and is more water responsible. We're also working directly in our own operations, and we've identified about 100 of our manufacturing sites which are in very water stressed locations. And there we've introduced water stewardship programs to help rectify that situation. And of course, we're also working with the wider business community to drive this change, which is so important because we are one business. We can't solve it alone. And I think everyone recognizes that we need an approach where everybody can step up across business, across the private sector, across civil society, and of course, governments need to step up as well.
Thanks, Helena. So a question for you, Donna. It can't be easy for, Xylem is pushing its, companies in the supply chain to sign the WASH pledge. What are the reactions that you get when you ask companies which are part of your supply chain to sign the WASH pledge? It'd be interesting to hear how they react to the ask.
We've had a varying response, and I think it's been very successful. As I mentioned, we have over 300 of our suppliers have already signed the WASH pledge, and a lot of it came through education. First of all, what is WASH? A lot of our suppliers actually had WASH in the workplace, and that's what we found quite a bit. I think some of the pushback, and it was talked about here, is getting WASH into the communities of where our suppliers. I think we're getting more pushback on that, but I think having conversations like we've had today with Mahir and Helena and you, Madhavan, the fact that it is imperative that we do this, and there's a lot of resources out there, whether it be WaterAid, WBCSD, Wash for Work, or other NGOs out there. There is help for our suppliers to get WASH in the workplace. Again, we have a lot of training materials. We have a lot of NGOs that we work with, and also different partnerships. So I think once our suppliers realize that they're not in this alone, and again, I also mentioned in my presentation is that it's different for each supplier. There is no one way to do something. So working with our suppliers one-on-one, we can help them get what works for with their facility. And so I think when you have a partnership like that, our suppliers have been very supportive. Again, and I look forward to, you know, more work through WaterAid and WBCSD and Wash for Work on getting the word out about WASH, what it is, and the support systems that are out there. And then I think we can tackle this day by day, a little bit by a little bit. And, you know, I also understand Helena's, you know, concerns that, you know, once the pandemic starts waning, people will stop using some of these, you know, WASH and distancing protocols, et cetera. But I think we should learn from this that we need to keep pushing, you know, safe, you know, water into our communities, just so we can be more resilient when the next pandemic hits.
Thanks, Donna. So I'm going to pose a question to all three of you, and any one or all of you could respond to it. So, you know, so we've heard very clearly that, you know, that COVID-19 has highlighted this connection between WASH, human health, business resilience, and, you know, has made hygiene for workers, including in supply chains, a priority for business. What are your recommendations for others who might be on this call on what recommendations to take to boards of companies on how to take action on this issue? Any one of you? All
right. I think Donna replied it. I think Donna replied it like also Helena said. We in this crisis, in this battle, it's a war, and we're all together in the total value chain, right? Somebody is procuring raw materials, somebody processing it, somebody the end products, and consumers is enjoying it. It's all about the global economy, livelihood, and one value chain. So we shouldn't feel we're alone. Some countries, some companies are equipped with more technology, training materials, or funding, and some are in the other ends who are depending as a supplier. So at least, if not in peacetime, in this wartime, a country like us or yours, where there are tons of people panicky things, and there is no government support. When we laid off companies here, nobody got one single cent, right? It's the people who went out desperately, who took life over livelihood, or vice versa. So there, we need to see more humanity. If it's not a big word, we need to see more corporate social responsibility, which we all have seen in the slides and five-star hotels and discussions and boardroom. That has to be released here. And we have to share knowledge, we have to share resources, and we have to also show more sympathy and empathy. And I think we have to say we are all together in this war, and nothing can be powerful than we all together. This is what we have seen, at least with our brand partners. And today we are very, very strong.
And I'd like to add something to what Mahir said. We had this conversation when we were doing our earlier meeting, and, you know, in Bangladesh, there's a lot of water, but sometimes there's not a lot of clean water. And so sometimes sometimes people say, but there's water in the world. You know, a lot of the work that Xylem does is to make water, first of all, affordable, and also scarce water. We're talking scarce water for drinking and wash. So I think we are all in this together. We all have a part to play in our own worlds, whether you're a supplier, a service provider, manufacturer. And I like what you said, Mahir, about, you know, right now we're in times of like war on the virus, and let's get together. There is a lot of folks trying to help out there. A lot of companies, including ours, transitioned over to manufacturing PPE for, you know, frontline workers. So there's so much work out there. If we just could, you know, get together and try to solve, you know, the world's problems as a single unit versus everybody out for themselves.
To add as well to that, I think Donna's completely right. But I think, Madhavan, your question was, what message would you advise people take to a board about this? I think if there's really the need to go to a company board about this, then there's a serious problem. You know, I think if you've got a company that is big enough to have a board that is not already prioritizing WASH within its supply chain, something's gone seriously wrong. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. The evidence is clear and has been for many years on the benefits of WASH, the business value of WASH, and the, you know, both the moral imperative, but also the business imperative to make sure your workers, the wider value chain, has access to WASH. So I think if someone on this call is in the situation where they are feeling they need to escalate this to the board level, then I would absolutely encourage them to, but I would like to hope that our companies with boards already see the value of this and are engaging in this. And actually, I think we are at the point where we need to be engaging with the smaller businesses, those ones that perhaps don't have boards, smaller setups, not as many resources in terms of HR teams. And really what we've been trying to do through Wash for Work is make sure that as a business community, we provide them with the resources centrally and freely accessible that they can use to do that within their own operations.
So 1 minute each, what would you want, what's that one message that you'd like to leave with everybody at the end of this call? So one message, 1 minute. Maher, over to you.
Well, I think message is very clear. In this world, we have to be all together. Like when we have an opinion, somebody has partnered. You see, we have 6,000 factories in Bangladesh. Everybody is busy supplying. We became the world's second largest exporter, and huge water is involved. And like Donna said, we don't have, we are a riverine country. We are a monsoon driven. We are flooded, but I have to remember ST cholerae, like water everywhere, not a single drop to water. So we have to be all together, share knowledge and value this value chain, because if it's a supply chain things and we are in this part of the world, we are busy manufacturing for that part of the world. So we need the collaborations and spread this awareness among everyone and show the world the success story, how we had tackled it together with a low-tech country, with no external support, but the great resilience and the bravery and a step forward.
Thanks, Maya. Donna?
You're welcome.
I think it's education and awareness. There is a problem out there. There is a way to solve it, whether it's through innovation or just hard work, training, support. I agree. We help our small suppliers. Our large suppliers are actually pretty good, but it's the small mom and pop who say may not have an HR department, may not have an EHS department. Getting that information out the right way, I think, is imperative. Awareness is the way we're going to tackle this.
Thanks, Donna. Elena?
Yeah, I think for me, the private sector for some time has been stepping up on this and working with perhaps our smaller family of private sector organizations as well to encourage them to step up within their own operations. But what I would like to leave people with is, I think, this need for increasingly governments to step up and really us to use our voice as a business community to advocate to governments on the importance of investing in WASH, the importance of prioritizing it at a national and a local government level. Because I think the inequalities that we see on WASH throughout the world and the gaps that we see, and the clock is ticking to 2030, we are only going to be able to achieve those bold targets that we set in 2015 if governments really get behind this more than they have done already. So I think that would be my thought to leave everyone with, and think about the role we can play as a business community in helping governments to get there.
Thanks very much, Elena. I think we've heard, if we were to try and summarize what we've heard from our panel, from Maher, from Donna, and from Elena, it's two clear messages. One, it's important for both buyers and supply chains to engage for both preparedness and to ensure resilience from future shocks. I think the second critical message that we've heard, and all three speakers, panelists have talked about it, is that COVID-19 has demonstrated that WASH action in supply chains is actually a business investment that can help mitigate risk and generate business value. I think we need to recognize that there's a need to move beyond the philanthropic and to recognize that investing in WASH is actually a core business priority. WaterAid, with partners like Diageo, Gap Inc., HSBC, Unilever, Twinings, have actually been investing in research to strengthen the business case for corporate WASH investment in supply chains and communities which surround them. This research is currently in its final phase, and the research aims to provide evidence on a return on investment through improved workforce health productivity, and to sort of cement WASH within sustainable business practice. The findings should be released in 2020 to 2022, And so if any of you are interested, please register your interest so that you could receive updates. And finally, I would urge all of you to use the examples that have been shared by Mahir from Fakir Fashions, from Helena from Unilever, and Donna from Xylem, to reflect on your own wash-related risks and opportunities, and to be inspired to take action and to engage with the WBCSD Wash Pledge 2.0. Thanks, everyone. Please stay safe and bye.
Thank you. Stay safe. Bye-bye.